This is Time and Other Thieves. I'm Sarah B., and today I'm going to share parts of a conversation I recently had with my friend Brittany Pressley, who is an award-winning audiobook narrator and voice actor. Brittany and I grew up in the same town, Cary, North Carolina, and went to high school together and were friends for the last 2 years of high school. She graduated the year after I did, and I also got to spend some time with her post-high school graduation in Boone, where I went to college and where her boyfriend at the time and my friend was also going to college. And she attended the North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem for a time, where my boyfriend at the time also attended, so I got to see her there a little bit. Saw one of her dance performances. That was when she was studying modern dance. But she eventually moved to New York City and found her place there as a voice actor, and now has over 700 audiobooks under her belt and has won multiple awards for her work, and rightfully so. She's incredibly talented. I've wanted to have her on the show for a while. I've been listening to her books for at least the past 10 years and hadn't invited her just because I couldn't see a way to make it super spiritual or philosophical in nature, our conversation, and basically decided that I didn't care about that so much and really just wanted to pick her brain about her work. And the ultimate inspiration was that my best friend Courtney had been listening to a book that Brittany narrates, a James Patterson book, which we'll hear us talk about briefly in a minute. And she was just so enthusiastic about what a great job Brittany did on that particular book that I ended up listening to it, although James Patterson is not something I would normally choose for entertainment. But I was so glad I did because I got to experience other sides of Brittany's narrating talent because other books I'd read up to then had been much different in style and genre and tone, more in the literary or memoir genre. So after I listened to that James Patterson book, I had dinner with Courtney and we were just gushing about how great Brittany is at her job and all the questions we wished we could ask her. And so I decided to have her on the show and have Courtney join in on Zoom so that she could ask any questions she wanted to as well. So this is the first episode of Time and Other Thieves where I've had a co-interviewer, and the second time, I guess, that I have interviewed a friend. The first time being Michael Thor, when I had him talk about his experience of quadriplegia. Brittany and Mike are also friends, and actually Brittany's husband was a huge help to Mike after his accident in that he took over the reins, basically, of the kitchen of the restaurant that Mike was in the process of opening, that his accident prevented him from being able to follow through with in the more active role of head cook that he'd originally designed for himself. So it's a close crew. The friends I had in high school, we might not talk a lot, but there is still a real affinity amongst that group of people. You'll also hear Brittany mention a person named Renee, whom I consider a dear, dear friend and spent tons of time with in middle school and high school. And Brittany and Renee became quite close in high school. So the conversation starts with me telling Brittany about the James Patterson book that Courtney and I both listened to. And the name of that book is First Case. Do you remember doing it?
Yeah.
I do remember doing it. I feel like, was I like a young, like smart hacker detective?
Exactly.
Okay, then it's not. Okay.
Angela, I think, was the...
Yes.
Yeah.
That one was another that I always think about this, which is I have a real thing with authors where I'm like, I'm begging authors to please look up like if you're going to write characters that are not of your genre or your age, rather your generation, like I'm begging you to look up their cultural touch points and their pop culture references, because I find this is like, I don't know, it's just like a little pet peeve of mine that like authors like still can only imagine their own youth and their own things that were relevant. And there was like a line in that book specifically that really made me chuckle, because it was like she was, you know, caught off guard by his Paul Newman baby blues. And I was like,
right.
No 25-year-old is thinking about Paul Newman when they're looking at Blue Eyes. If they know anything, it's maybe the salad dressing. Anyway, it's just like one of my things where I'm like, come on, guys, take 2 seconds or put it in a different time, which I love it when an author, just like when it doesn't really necessarily impact the story. It's not necessarily like a historical book, but they will just choose to set it in 2012, like college 2012. And it's like, great. Now you can do all of your 2012 references that you want to do, or 2001 or whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah, that book, the other books I'd heard of yours were definitely in different genres, like the one about Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse.
That one's so beautiful.
Yeah, I remember you really loving that one. The book we're referring to is Katharine Smyth's All the Lives We Ever Lived, published in 2019. I've listened to it 3 times, I think.
Oh, wow. It's a really lovely book.
Yeah. And there was one about like a serial murdery kind of tennis teacher guy that I listened to.
Oh, yeah.
That book would be You All Grow Up and Leave Me by Piper Weiss, published in 2018. And then You Should Probably Talk to Someone, or maybe You Should Talk to Someone. Yeah, that was great. So yeah, the James Patterson was way different, and it exposed me to, your range. And there were some scenes in there where the narrator was terrified for her life, and you were really, showing your acting chops more than you did in those other types of books. So I don't know if you have anything to say about channeling terror and really acting. More than just reading. It's more than reading. Sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like my approach to it. And I think that is more the way like listener industry, whatever, is going. Not everybody. There's definitely still people who are like, just say the words. I don't need all this acting. It's too emotional. It's too whatever. And this is just me like looking at reviews and Reddits and those kinds of things. Everybody has an opinion. Not from like a critical standpoint, but just like, the random Audible review who's like, I hated it.
Okay.
And you're like, oh, okay. But usually a lot of times, like when they're saying like that kind of thing, I'm like, well, that's what I like to do. So, you know, totally, I'm not the gal for you. But yeah, for me personally, like, I want it to be an immersive experience. I want it to be, a movie in your mind, and so I'm trying to create as much of a full sonic experience as possible to create it as much of a like in-depth world as can be. So with all the different voices and with all the different ranges of emotions, and because that's how I read books. Which is something I'm also like kind of really interested in, this like the psychology of that everybody reads differently. I mean, I know that sounds like very like, but it's kind of something you just don't think about it. It's in the same way it's like, oh, I see blue and you see blue, but like maybe we're not actually seeing the same shade. And like learning that everybody reads differently, we're all processing the information, we're all seeing the words, but that I find that like for me, I was not a particularly voracious reader when I was young because I'm a very slow reader. Which is not like most people that I talk to that do my job. They always talk about how much they loved reading. And I used to feel kind of like a little shamed or sheepish that I was like, I kind of hated reading. I didn't read a lot for fun. But that's because I was really slow, because I read the way I narrate. Like I read one word at a time, fully like imagining and like hearing the voices and like, I don't know. So it was like I was taking it in much more slowly and detailed, as opposed to like I've only now, because of the necessity of my job, really learned how to like skim. In my mind, like if you were skimming, you were missing things, you were skipping things. Like you have to read all the words. You can't just skim over them. Right. And now I understand that that's not necessarily the case. But it's also interesting when I hear people, I've had to accept that a lot of people, listen to audiobooks at such super high speeds, which I used to also like be kind of offended by, and I've pulled back from being offended. But it's like, look, that's just how their brain processes it. They are, because in my mind, I'm like, well, what's the rush? Like the whole point of listening is to kind of like, as another form of entertainment or relaxation or whatever. So why would you want to rush through this experience? But for some folks, again, I think it just depends on how they view it. Like some people are really like looking to get lost in a book and lost in a story. And others are they're just trying to intake information, the story,
I mean, I didn't even know that people did that. I only recently learned that was an option for like podcast interviews. I interviewed someone and he suggested that I speed his voice up because he's a very slow talker. And I'm like, what? Thing? No, I'm not going to do that. This is how you talk.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That people would,
2.5 times speed. And I've listened to some of it and it's like, like it doesn't actually change the pitch necessarily, but it's so fast.
This strikes me as a really potent example of how hurried we are in this culture, that we can't even listen to a book for pleasure at a normal speed. Indeed, what is the rush? Indeed, as Brittany asks, are we just trying to get through it? And if so, why in the world would we be taking that approach to books that are supposed to be pleasurable? Well, with the voices, how do you come to that? Okay, I guess the best question to start with is, do you read the book all the way through? I think you've told me already that you don't read the book beforehand.
It depends. It varies from book to book. I will usually read like, the first part of it. I'm kind of just, I always say like, I'm trying to get like the who, what, why, when, and where. Like I want to know like who everybody is, where are we, both geographically and in time, and like what's going on in the world, and like what's the general goings on. But I don't necessarily feel like I need to know every plot point. I don't necessarily feel that it would shape my performance that much. Sometimes it can, sometimes it will. Or you might just want to like kind of know what happens at the end. But I don't necessarily feel like I need to like read the full thing all the way through. My justification for this is that I think about in like episodic television, it's not uncommon for the actors to just get their scripts every week. You are acting and performing and existing in what your character knows at this time. We don't know what happens in the future. None of us do. So to me, I sort of feel like it's a more authentic or sincere experience of me like going through the story in real time and having those moments of like discovery and like, oh shit, like, so if there is a moment where you're like, I kind of enjoy that, having those moments, it also just makes it more entertaining for me.
Sure, right. Well, it makes me think of in writing, there's the adage, no surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader. So no surprise for the audiobook reader, no surprise for the listener, kind of thing.
Right. And like sometimes I think knowing certain things might, again, for me, like inadvertently maybe change how I would. So, let's say it's a mystery or something. If you know who the bad guy is, like, is there going to be some bias there that you're going to automatically kind of color it in a way that like gives it away? Whereas like if you have no idea that he's supposed to be the bad guy, like you just give him a very sincere read.
Right.
It's like you're not assuming that he's going to be revealed as anything more nefarious. So, I don't know.
And then you get like a lay of the land as far as characters go. Do you like make a list of characters and decide on what their voices are going to be ahead of time?
Yeah. Or is there like a catalog of voices that you kind of have like the bones a bit for? So you're like, oh, this is this person, they're this gender, this age. I'm going to pick from 42C. And that's like who your person is.
Other than Renee's dad being in a lot of books. and to be clear, it's not really Renee's dad. It's really Renee doing Renee's dad. That's my one little Easter egg for, for listeners. Astute listeners will be like, who's this guy who always kind of sounds like this? No, I would say, okay, so it depends. Like if I have like if I'm doing like a fantasy book or, like I just did like a sci-fi where it was like a whole like cast of military people, those are the books where I will have a list. Now, I'm also someone, I don't like to mark up my scripts. A lot of narrators will like have lots of highlights and underlines and notes in the margins. I don't really like that. I find that kind of just distracting when I'm working. So if I have anything that feels like it requires a lot of notes, I just write them on a piece of paper. That's just for me to keep track of. I will, usually during the recording process, the engineer can be marking, the person who's recording me, they can mark the characters as we're going along. So I will also have them do that. So I have like an actual voice sample, so if it's a character that comes up on the first day, but then we don't hear from them. I mean, usually they're pretty solidified in my head, but sometimes I'm like, can you play me that person again? I kind of forgot what they sounded like. So like we have that, but I'll have my little cheat sheet to the side that says, like Queen Melina raspy or, or whatever, just like little kind of quick things to kind of organize them in my head. For a general book where we're having 5 to 6 key players, I don't really need a ton of notes. And then that's also when I would say about 60% of the work I do, I have a director, which also kind of ties back to the previous question about reading it all the way through. There's a little bit less pressure on me when I do have that production support of a director, because they are supposed to have read the whole thing through. And I try to be pretty transparent. I'm like, just, is there anything I need to know? I haven't gotten to the end. Is there anything I need to know? And also sometimes I will read throughout the day too. Like day one recording, I've read maybe up to what we're going to do on day one. And then again, I might then read for day 2 or day 4 or whatever. Again, if I feel it's necessary. But yeah, so for characters, I'd really just look at, Courtney, you were saying, their age, their general background, if there's any accent, kind of check off the primary things. I will also search the text. So I have words that I do a word search for to make sure there's not anything descriptive in the book already that's telling me what kind of voice they have, which I used to have set words that I would search for, like raspy, gravelly, high pitched, shrill, those. But I've actually now will just search the word voice, and kind of the PDF will just pull out anytime it goes, and I can scan through. Because one time I did get kind of burned, even when I had been I'd prepped it all, and then there was one character who way later in the book, it said something about she said in her typically booming voice, and I was like, typically booming voice? What? I didn't give it she's not booming. So that taught me to look for, because sometimes it's not always necessarily in the vocal description, or I've seen smoke is another one I will often type in, because that's another one that's come up where there was nothing necessarily about the voice, but it was later on it said something about she sounded like she smoked a pack a day or something like that. So
interesting. Yeah.
So so those things, if it's already in the book in any way, to try to give it that. Sometimes we'll just ask the author, how much communication we have. Sometimes the authors will have things in their mind of I feel like I hear this person like this. Or they'll give me an actor, I imagine this kind of being
Yeah, that was another question we had, if you communicate with authors at all.
Again, it depends. If I've worked with the author before, typically once I've worked with somebody just via social media, we're following each other. So then I feel a little more comfortable, I can send them direct messages. The first time I'm working, it's a little touchy. The director will usually be the person that connects with the author, or I am, again, there's like a go-between, like submit your questions to this pre-production person and they will submit them onto the author. I don't know. I mean, I understand why. It's for protection on both ends, I think. Like, one, obviously, I guess it's just like they don't want narrators, actors, whatever, being too like bothersome to an author. I think it's also, though, a little bit to kind of stay out of the weeds too, with like the authors having too much, because at a certain point they do kind of just have to let it go. I mean, for me, I always feel like my number one goal is pleasing the author. I mean, I care about the listeners, but I'm like, look, I don't care if everybody hates it, but the author's like, I loved it. Then I'm like, then I'm happy with my job, because I feel like they have put so much into this work and I want them to be pleased with it. So to the best of my ability, I want to facilitate whatever an author asks me to do in a way that I don't think will, because I have had requests that I will not do because I feel like it's either something that I don't feel like I can successfully pull off, or that I think is going to be an unpleasant listening experience in the long run.
Yeah.
And so I will have to be like, we're not going to do that. But
did any examples come to mind?
Yeah, I just had something that I think she'd said something about, like, she wanted him to be like from the inner city. That was her description of it. And I was like, I'm a white woman and I don't really feel comfortable giving this black man a dialect that feels like it could just become a caricature really easily. So I'm going to not do that. But, you know, try to do everything else.
Right.
Are there accents, though, that... I mean, how do you even prepare for accents? Like, what's the hardest accent that you've had to do?
Again, there are some people who are like real savants of, like, they approach accents in a very like academic way, and I'm kind of like, I can, but I'm a bit more broad strokes on my accents. And I will say, like, I try to manage expectations by saying this is what I can do. If there is ever an accent that has been requested that I'm not particularly comfortable with, that is when I will offer, hey, why don't I just do a quick sample of this? And if you think it sounds good, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise I'm just going to be in my head the whole time being like, I don't know, I feel like, and then like wanting to like redo every line because I'm like, I don't know, I feel like this sounds bad. And I might still feel that way, but at least if I've gotten like the thumbs up from the author being like, no, I like it, I think it sounds fun, then I'm like, okay, fun. And I think the average listener doesn't know all those specific regionalisms. And again, or if it's something that they really like, I've had something another, like, a time where it was like they really wanted a New Orleans accent, and I was like, I'm not comfortable doing that. This is what I'm comfortable doing. If you think this works, great. If not, you should find somebody else. Scottish is real hard.
Yeah. Without it sounding like it was just silly,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I did a book a little while ago with some Scottish, and I had so many voice notes that I was like sending like back and forth because I was cracking myself up with how like terrible I thought it was. And then the book got an award, so I don't know.
Oh, nice.
So another thing is that people will suggest as a way to like make an accent easier, like, well, just do something subtle. That's not a thing for me. Yeah. Like, we're either doing it or not doing it.
Yeah.
With the exception of probably like a Southern accent. Like, that's the only accent I can dial up and dial down comfortably.
And that makes sense.
Because it's natural to me. And so like I can turn that. But for anything else, it's like I can either turn it on or I can turn it off. If I try to do it subtly, I think it's just going to sound like I'm not really doing it or dropping in and out of it. Be like, oh, she was going in and out of a British accent. It's like, so you just do it or you don't do it. Like, I think unless it's really natural to you, being able to do a slight accent is much more difficult. And so also it's the kind of thing where some days it'll be on and some days it'll be off. So if it's not a main character, sometimes it'll come in and I'll be like, you know what? Same thing with the engineer. I'll be like, we need to get through this. We don't have time for me to like stop to really keep redoing it. I was like, I'm going to say all the lines, but then tomorrow at the end of the day, I want to go back and redo them all, and we'll like insert the new ones.
Okay.
Because sometimes it's like with an accent, I can maybe do it in isolation, but if I have to like be flipping back and forth in a conversation and you're not that confident with it, it's really hard to like keep it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, so sometimes in the interest of just getting things done, we'll go through the scene, and then I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to come back and just do them like as wild lines where I say all of that one character's lines all at once. Then I can just like insert them.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That is, and that what was going to be a question I had as well too, on just like the two-way conversation, like how practiced do you have to be able to slip in and out of the different characters to have dialogue that flows? Or what is it, I'm just going to do this person's part and then I'm going to do that person's part? So it sounds like it's a blend, just
so
depending
typically,
on.
I would say 99.9% it's just back and forth.
God, that's so impressive.
And unless they're, like I said, unless it's the only times I do it separately is if there's an accent that I'm just like, I can't flip between like French and German back and forth. This is too difficult. So I'm going to do all the French lines and then I'll do all the German lines later.
Yeah, I noticed in that Patterson book, subtle things you would do to differentiate voices. Like the narrator had a best friend, and you had her, she had a very certain way of saying ours. Yeah, I was like, well, that's neat. And I feel like some readers just aren't so much with the subtlety.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like trying to find little small speech patterns and those like micro things. You know, anything about their background can be helpful. But, you know, like take our three voices. We're women of all the same age from the basic, like it is not uncommon for that to be in a book. And it's like, okay, how am I going to make these three women who are from the same hometown, from the same, you know, how am I going to make them different? Because I don't want them to be cartoonish, you know? And I think maybe that's where it can get, you want it to be distinct for the listener, but you kind of just hope that at least enough of their personality types or their like delivery will eventually make it clear. But yeah, like finding that, like you said, like the R's, like maybe one of them has like says their R's a little harder, or there's something, or you know, just something that hopefully you are listening and you aren't getting confused, like, wait, who's saying that? I don't know. They all kind of sound the same. So it's, but not taking such a wild swing that it's an unpleasant experience.
Yeah.
I mean, like my baseline is going to be my voice. Like most of my protagonists are going to be my general voice, pitched up or pitched down, depending, you know. And so then it's like I have to kind of circle everybody around my baseline. Sometimes also it is technical in a sense of, okay, how much is this person in this book? If it's somebody who has a large role and I have to be able to sustain that for a longer time, I may make a different choice because of what I know I can vocally sustain. And those are some things that like you kind of just like learn along the way. Like one of the very first books I did, I gave like a character like a very whispery voice, which is really taxing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm stuck with this.
Made a huge mistake.
I won't do that again because it becomes really fatiguing. And I think I've gotten a bit more generous with myself lately rather, with not feeling as much pressure to be as
dynamic,
take as bold of swings. Yeah, as dynamic and stuff. Particularly when it comes to like male characters, you know. Like, there's a long time where it was like every man was described as like low and rough. You're like, you know, and so I'm kind of like, all right, sorry, I'm not gonna do that. Or I mean, I'll do as what I can, but I try to really limit how much like forced gravel I put in my voice. It's just not very good for me.
Right. What's like the longest you'll read in a day? Is there a typical duration?
Yeah, I mean, my sessions are usually booked either 10 to 5 or 10 to 4. Wow. So there's two ways of recording. So there's free roll and there's punch and roll. So on a free roll, we're just rolling, you know, other than like major stops if we're like really like got to stop to look something up or whatever. But otherwise, we're rolling through any mistakes or any retakes that I want to do, you know, if I just am like, I don't think I can do this line better or whatever. And then there's punch, which is like, so reading, you make a mistake or you want to redo something or there's a noise or there's whatever. It's stop. We do the pre-roll, which for anyone who doesn't know it, so it's like the pre-roll is going to be like anywhere from 1 to 3 seconds, 5 seconds. I like a very short pre-roll where you're just hearing like the last few words that you just said so that you can like pick it up and continue on with the sentence. So like in that regard, sometimes I'll stop. I just need to reset or something. And so like for an editor or the engineer rather, like they'll ask me like, oh, did you want to, if I stop, their presumption is that I want to redo something. And sometimes it's like, no, I just want to like, I just need to take a second, 5 seconds to just like, take a sip of water or take a big old breath.
Yeah, right.
Whatever. It's like, I'm good. I just need to like kind of.
Or maybe sometimes you get emotional. I know that one book was about a woman's father dying and your father had just died. And yeah,
that was pretty rough.
When you do these long days, are you like done talking? Like you get home and your husband knows to, he can talk maybe. You can just listen.
You know, the main thing that for me that I have issues with is my jaw. And it's actually, I am recording shorter days or less, maybe same length of days, but I'm getting less audio done. When I first was working, I really was like a machine. And I mean, still comparatively to some people, I probably would still be considered a machine. But basically, I'm now where I schedule myself typically a half to an extra day longer than I used to always schedule myself. So, you know, if I was doing a 9-hour book before, 3 days. Now I'm always scheduling that to be 4 days, 3.5, like only if I'm just like so busy that like I just can't really like spare it. But usually I just want to give myself that extra day so that I'm trying to get around 2.5 hours of finished audio done. Which again, if it's a straight record, that can still mean I'm talking straight through for something-ish hours. Yeah. But yeah, I just find I get really, my jaw starts to get, it's less like I have less throat vocal kinds of things that I don't usually feel that way, but I just get, my jaw gets very tight.
Yeah, right.
The muscle gets real sore. And like this past week I was getting we were kind of underscheduled. And like I start having to literally like peel my lips back to like say the words. Like I feel like really like chewing the words, you know, just to like get it out. Because like, you know, because like if you imagine like, you know, you're doing a push-up and you get to that point where you're just like you just can't do them good or any kind of muscle fatigue where you lose form. Like you can't maintain a proper form once you start to get. So same thing. It's like the more fatigued my jaw just gets, it's like, you know, I can't like articulate, like I can still talk, but like not cleanly.
And you'll be in that state while recording? Yeah,
like for that last like half an hour or so, you're just like trying to get the words out. And I don't really, I don't, and that's why I don't want to schedule, like I try not to be scheduled because I don't think, even though my engineer director like, well, you sound fine to me, it doesn't feel good.
Right.
So it's like, maybe performance-wise is not any worse, but it just doesn't, I don't feel like I'm as like connected or present because I'm just trying to get the freaking words out.
Do you have lots of different directors or is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And are you, so it sounds like most of the time you're recording, you're with somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm always at least with an engineer.
Okay. Yeah. Because I was thinking a lot of this was maybe like you just, when you had the time, you just schedule yourself like, you know, kind of maybe like how a writer would put something, you know, this is my time in the morning where I write and I'll just like, then I do something else. So thought maybe you were like picking it up and putting it down. Sounds like you just like, I have to be locked in.
Yeah, no, I'm on a pretty tight schedule for most everything. I have, you know, it's like,
okay.
But you're in a home studio right now?
I am in a home studio right now. So if I'm doing something from home, I just have a remote engineer. We either use Zoom or we use, there's this program called Source Connect. But on Zoom, it's like they'll just come in and they just like remotely control I give them like access to my computer, and then they are running the session. When I first started, I did record myself more often, and I can't do it anymore. Yeah. I mean, honestly, sometimes I just joke, like, because sometimes I'm hiring them on, usually they're being provided, but sometimes they're not, or I'm just like, they're giving me a budget and I just like hire whoever I want to hire to engineer me. And I mean, sometimes I joke with them, like, I'm like not trying to like diminish their skills as engineers, but I'm like, I need a babysitter. I just like I can do it. I just like need someone else to like, it is kind of like an ADHD body doubling kind of thing. Like just having someone else in the room like makes me more focused. It's also so that I can just be completely focused on doing this, because the fact of the matter is like when you're like reading, and you're like super trying to like read the words, get them everything right, plus be all, and then you have to also be mindful of like this other screen. When I used to have to be like watching that monitor to also then be like punch, move the line to where it is, then like get back into it. It's like, it's just, it's not great, It's like, it's fine. But like for me, I just find like it's not as like efficient. I make more mistakes. It's so much more seamless to just be able to like have someone else be doing all that kind of stuff. If I want to retake it, I don't have to take my eyes off the page. I'm just like, can we redo that? And it's just like right there. But also it just keeps me on task.
How involved is the director? Are they present often for your actual reading, or is it more like at the beginning?
No, they're there the whole time.
Okay.
Again, same thing as far as remote or in person. Some are more involved than others. I think I am, I enjoy a heavy hand. A lot of them are like, oh, I just want to work with someone who's going to like stay out of my way and just like, let me do what I want. And I like, I don't want them stopping me all the time. And like, as long as what you're offering is thoughtful and relevant, I'm game for it. I think particularly like the longer this is always like a weird thing in any, I guess, like as you get older and whatever, it's like, it's always that weird shift when like, you start out like the new kid, and then like you're in something long enough that you're like, oh, I'm the old kid now. Right. The old one here. Like, everyone's younger than me now. So I feel like I've been in it long enough that like, now I'm starting to get directors who haven't been doing it as long as, they're new to directing. And so I think maybe they might feel, I try to do like before we start, to let them know like, hey, I'm game for feedback. This is a collaboration. Chime in if you have anything you want to say. Because I think sometimes maybe they're like, oh, well, this person's done like 700 audiobooks. I'm just going to like stay out of their way. Like, I'm sure they know what they're doing. Let them do like, sure, I know what I'm doing, but it's fun to have a different set of ears. And like, I think it's also nice I don't want to always do my default instincts, Yeah. So it's like sometimes someone will come in and just be like, oh, I was thinking you could do like on a voice or something or whatever, like. As long as I can buy it, as long as I can believably, like, I get what you're saying and I can believably do it, then I'm like totally game, because I feel like it's a way to like mix it up, even if it's not conscious that you're choosing the same choice. Like that's just the way it is, So like having somebody else make a suggestion for how to deliver a line or a character or something different than what my go-to instinct is, I like it.
But as far as your narration, like you said that your baseline is your normal voice, which I would disagree. It sounds much different the way you narrate when you're not doing a full-on voice,
Yeah.
It's still quite different from your just normal talking voice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends book to book. Like, if I had to guess from your reading preferences, I'm guessing you're not listening to a lot of rom-coms.
Courtney might be.
So I would say when I do like YA books, or if I do romantic comedy books, like those probably sound more to my regular speaking voice. And I guess the main difference, it's like, it's not so much that I'm trying to take on a voice necessarily, but it's more just, again, it's just like a technical thing that like I have to be much more articulate than I am my regular speaking voice. Annoyingly so, you know, I have to like enunciate in ways that I don't when I'm regularly speaking.
Right.
And even still, like sometimes I'll still try to like push back on that a little bit. So after I record, I'll get, you know, what they're called pickups, which is just like a list or packet of anything that was a mistake that needs to be redone and inserted. And that can be anything from, oh, there's a background noise or there's a mouth click or something that wasn't caught while we were recording it. And sometimes I'll still get like, you know, pickups that are like diction or like sounds slurred. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I can hear it. But a lot of times I will push back and be like, I'm not doing that. Anybody who is a human who has ears knows what I said. Also, like it's a real big thing with young listeners. Like there's this one imprint that's called Listening Library that's like specific to like middle grade YA young listeners, and like they are particularly persnickety about things. And I've had pickups, which again I used to do more YA and middle grade stuff, but like ands and buts would be flagged a lot for me because, you know, let's say I'm saying and I just like, because you don't really say like, and I just wanted to say, you know, it's like, or like, but I, you know, but I don't want to, you know, or like, you know, it might be written as I don't want to, but like what fucking teenager says, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
what anyone of any age says that,
Yeah.
you know? You're going to be like, oh, but I don't want to. Or a director I'll have like be like, can we get a little bit more want to? It sounds a little bit like wanna. And I'm like, yeah, because that's what everybody says.
Yeah.
Nobody says want to.
Right.
It's just the way you speak as you slide words together. So it's like I'm constantly fighting that a little bit. What I know feels natural and feels more like normal to like, I don't want to get a bunch of pickups. I don't want to be asked to like redo a bunch of stuff. I think the narration voice, it is more internal. It's like a little more quieter. It's a little bit like more just like, hey, I'm about to tell you a story. You know, it's just like trying to like draw that in. And so it's like, whereas like my normal regular speaking voice might be like louder, brighter, all those kinds of things. And that's why, you know, again, if I'm doing something that's like first person, like comedic, it's going to sound probably more akin to this. Whereas like for a memoir or something that's more storytelling, I feel like it is my voice, but it's just like dropped in a little bit more. And it's just like a little more like an intimate kind of like, I imagine it almost like it's telling a story, but to one person, not to like an audience. Like, so I try not to make it like super presentational. And I think it's also, it's relevant to thinking of the books you read, which were much more like somber in tone kinds of books. You know, that's going to like affect where you're placing it and the message. I will say, I think maybe you should talk to someone. Did come to me at a time in my life where I maybe was feeling a bit more. I really loved that book and I was really excited they cast me in it. I think I had a bit more hang-ups about, so like I said, when I did start, I was first hired to primarily do like young adult, you know, because I had like a younger sounding voice. And so when I got this book, I don't know, so everything I've been hired to do, I was always playing like 25 or less. And so it was like this memoir of this woman who was like in her like mid to late 40s. And I think I just had this, even though Lori, who I like know and I've listened to, and hello, it's not like all of a sudden we've become in our 40s and like we suddenly have these voices. But in my mind, I was like, oh, well, I need to sound a little bit more like mature. You know? So I do think for that one, I probably was giving it more of a voice.
Brittany was oh so kind enough to agree to read out loud in her narrator voice some of my writing, which I want to share with you at the end of this episode. But there's just a little bit of our conversation left, so we'll finish up with that portion of the program first. How do you feel about this being your profession?
I mean, other than the existential dread of the inevitable AI takeover, I feel good about it.
Yeah. There's
That
that.
is so valid for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel very fortunate to have found it when I did. I think I kind of got in, certainly not the ground floor, but, perhaps the mezzanine, because I kind of got into it right before there was like the boom of audiobooks, or right as the boom was kind of happening. And so it was really great for a while. And not to say that it's not still great, but there was like a sweet spot where it was just, work was so plentiful, and I don't know. I think that there is more, the irony being that as it feels like job scarcity is becoming increasingly a thing, post-COVID, there was just like a huge flood of like new narrators. A lot of people.
Wow.
Some of that was necessary. The growth of the industry, a lot of it was really necessary in terms of casting a wider net for diversity of voices, to tell the right stories and all that kind of stuff. But it hasn't just been that. So, I mean, I have my own feelings about that.
A dilution of quality.
Yeah, just so many people wanting to do, and and it's gotten, I mean, this is maybe a little too inside for the average listener, but there's a bit of a like MLM vibe to things.
What's that?
Multi-level marketing.
Oh,
like culture, like almost like I started increasingly seeing people being like, "Do you want to narrate audiobooks? Like, sign up for my course." And I'd be like, "Who is this person?" A lot of people, or like with TikTok or whatever, proclaiming to be these like experts. That's the word I'm looking for. These experts in these taking class, and like you too can be an audiobook narrator. Like, all you have to do is buy this microphone, and I found that to be like just very annoying and very both from like a marketing thing, and also just like, yes, are we working from home, are we whatever, but like there is something also about like industry standards, like directors, engineers having professional spaces, and like I don't love the idea that it's like, oh, well, any yahoo with a closet and a dream can just do this, and it's like like, oh, you don't need all this fancy stuff, anyone can do it. And it's like, well, I mean, I guess.
But quality, don't you want?
Yeah, so now I think I'm just in a place where I feel really, again, very lucky to get the volume of work that I am still getting. I'm still working a lot, which is great. I think the hardest thing for me is that I do feel like burnt out. And, I've done other like podcast interviews where people are like, it's very, or just other people just ask me, and it's very sweet or flattering, I should say. It's like, they're like, well, now you're at a place in your career, like, I guess you can be like really choosy about the work you do. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but like, I like to make money, so not really.
Yeah.
Like, sure, I guess I could be choosy, but I would not have enough money. So not really. I'm pretty much just doing like, unless there's something I find like deeply objectionable, but that hasn't changed. That was even from day one. I wasn't doing anything. Didn't matter about my status. It was like, if I find something deeply objectionable, like, I'm not going to do it.
Like, what would make it objectionable?
Anything with a strong particular political agenda, or I don't like anything that glorifies violence. I'm okay with things that are violent as long as the tone is that this is a condemnable thing. Like, I had something that the producer like really warned me. He was like, just want to like make sure that, he was like freaking me out. I'm like, well, Robin, what happens in this book? Like, you're kind of freaking me out here. And it was like about a serial killer who was doing like pretty vile things. And I was like, but I mean, like, it's not like being like fetishized, right? Like, he's a serial killer doing this awful thing, and it's awful, and that's the tone of the book. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. but it's different than being like, oh yeah, we're doing these vile things to these women, and it's really sexy, which those books exist, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. It's not going to stop it from being out there, but I don't have to be a part of it. And
you don't want to participate.
And quite frankly, I don't want to spend multiple days in it. And having to like, I even turned down something somewhat recently that was like, it was like a health and wellness book, but from like a very religious perspective. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And I don't know that I can that's the other thing. I have to, particularly on like that kind of book, like I need to talk about it with some enthusiasm. Like I buy this shit. And I don't know that I can convincingly be like promoting this kind of like super Christian nationalist kind of wellness. I'm not available for this. The other thing is also like work begets work and genre begets genre. So it's like the kind of thing where I'm like, well, I don't also want to do this and then now I'm going to get more requests to do more of this kind of thing. Like, you know, it's like you kind of think of it in that way of like, okay, maybe I'm I could use the work right now. So should I just do it? And that's like, sometimes that's like a harder call to make, to be like, no, because I don't want more of this.
Yeah.
You don't want to be typecast as the Christian nationalist wellness guru.
Right. Once I say yes to this, like it just might mean that there's more of it to come.
Well, gosh, what a metaphor for life.
Yeah, I was going to just ask about kind of like projects. And it sounds like typically there's a project, they come to you to see if you would be willing to accept it. Are there any situations where you're able to be like, oh, I love this author or I love this director, and you have a relationship with them, or you're able to just say, whatever you're working on next, can I please be a part of it? Just like as far as how work goes, like how you get the gigs.
Yeah, so that has also kind of changed. Some of it, again, I don't love, but used to be that, they just come to me. They're like, we have this book. It's due by this date. It's going to take you 3 days to record. This is what we have available. Usually it's more like that. Sometimes we have an audition. We're going to submit, 4 or 5 people. And, they'll typically check your availability before they submit you for the audition. And then, yes, it did not. Again, someone in one of those classes or courses started telling narrators that they should be hitting up authors or should be start pitching themselves for books, which I feel like used to be the kind of thing that maybe you would do very rarely. Like really be mindful about doing that.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the way it should be. But because that became such a thing and I was like resistant to doing it, but now it's like you gotta move with what everybody else is doing. So it's like, if that's what everybody else is doing, I guess now I have to do it too, lest I be forgotten. I just don't love it because it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just more unpaid labor.
That's fair.
Honestly, I'm just like, I don't want, like, I've already worked all day and now you're telling me like I have to go home and look through the upcoming releases for this publisher. Like that's someone's actual job.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I'm, that the producers are supposed to be casting. They're supposed to be looking at what's coming up and they're supposed to be casting. But now, like, I'm expected to kind of like do that for them and like put myself in front of them or judge. So, I mean, I will do it once or twice a year. I've started to look at it more as maybe just a way to sort of curate the types of books I want, by sending a list of like, hey, these are 10 books that are coming out in the next year that I'm interested in. It's kind of like, all right, even if I don't end up getting these books, it kind of shows this is the kind of stuff I'm excited about doing, so that maybe it kind of like drives the conversation more in that way. Because like I said, it can be very easy to get stuck in like one particular kind of genre.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be good to just remind them, I'm like, I'm interested in this or that kind of thing. I don't usually reach out directly to an author. At most, I might like follow them on Instagram. It's like just a subtle way of I'm aware of you, and so when it gets time, maybe they'll remember that.
Do you have a favorite genre that you like to read? And is there a book you're like most proud of?
That's a good one.
I do really enjoy mystery thriller books. Just I find them like fun to read. Yeah, like entertaining. I love memoir. Like my favorite, like just to read books. Not that I do like any reading for just pure enjoyment anymore, but
how would you have time?
I do like memoirs. I will say I don't really get to do them almost at all anymore, which ultimately, while sad for me, I think is probably the right choice, which is that just because increasingly authors are reading their own books, which look, I think of the story in someone's own real voice, I always am going to say I'm pro that. I'm not super pro authors reading their own fiction books. And not to say that they're never good, but feels like it's a different skill. But yeah, hearing like the author tell their own memoir, like as much as like, again, from a selfish standpoint, like I love reading those books, I support it that they're trying to encourage authors to read their own books. It's just like a different level of connection, I think.
Is there a book that stands out as one you're really proud of?
Yes. I just did this book, or I did it this fall, and it just came out recently. It's called Good Intentions. She's a debut author. Marisa Walls is her name. I just had so much fun with it. So again, like sometimes when people are asking me like what books they recommend, my answer is kind of like twofold, because sometimes it's just like I just really liked working on it. Like I had a great time working on it, whether or not it's necessarily like the best book ever. Like sometimes it's just like because of what I like to do, but I do think this was a very good book, and I'm proud of what I did with it. It was just like a fun acting-y kind of. I got to really like dig in to be a character, because she's so the basic premise is it's this woman who we meet her at the point at which her like twin sister has died, and the whole book is also written through the POV or like through the format of she's talking to her sister. So there's this constant like kind of breaking the fourth wall to be like, but you see, Dana, I just blah, 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 like where she's like justifying herself. So that's woven throughout the whole narrative, is that it's like she's telling the story, but she really is telling it to her sister. So it's very confessional kind of storytelling. And it's basically her sister dies, and then the night that her sister dies, she's in the hospital, and there's another woman who's in the hospital whose son has just died. And she basically like becomes obsessed with this woman and starts like stalking her. And it's just like a very fun book, like a very layered book, and like to also kind of get to play this woman who is like basically unraveling throughout the book, just like slowly becoming an increasingly unreliable narrator, I guess.
Right.
That you like start out very sympathetic to her, and then as it goes on, you're like, what is she? I think she might be crazy.
Yeah.
Which is how it felt. But that's why it's called Good Intentions, because like her whole thing is like, but I was just doing it, I was just trying to be nice. I was just trying to, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. And this is another one that's kind of old, but Courtney, since you're into those more, I did this book. It was actually like, it's like sci-fi, but it's like crime-fi, called The Gone World.
Okay.
It's kind of complex, but like
love it.
I felt like it was really good.
And Courtney, you can search her name in the library.
You had mentioned that. I need to do that again. Sarah and I are both avid Buncombe County Library users, so if we can support them
and
get
them on CD.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you said it was in the car. I was actually going to ask about that. I was like on a CD?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember what your first audiobook was? Like, did you guys ever listen to any audiobooks like when we were young?
No, I didn't. It wasn't until like a few years ago for me, like 10.
Yeah, not a book. We would listen to Lake Wobegon,
Right.
Garrison Keillor, like Prairie Home Companion, but specifically the Lake Wobegon stories. My dad had those on tape.
Huh. Cute.
But yeah, like the first audiobook I ever listened to, I don't know. That's interesting. It might have been one of yours, Brittany.
I listened to The Lord of the Flies on a tape. I feel like it was like a junior in high school like summer reading list. Like a bunch of books I was supposed to read before like the first day of school. My dad like got a bunch of them on tape and was like, clean your room and listen to these books.
Very smart of him.
Okay. And I was into it. I was like, oh, this shit's pretty good.
Yeah. Many thanks to Brittany Pressley for coming on the show, and to Courtney Wait for helping me out as a fellow interviewer. Courtney and I have been best friends since middle school, and we were actually in the same kindergarten class. So lucky that I get to live in the same town as her and see her every week. I'm going to share those passages I mentioned earlier that Brittany was kind enough to record. She actually did 2 versions of 3 paragraphs that I sent her. These paragraphs are taken from what I'm calling my novel. I always put it in air quotes, that I just sort of chip away at when time and inspiration allow. Brittany described one version that she read as more wistful and restrained, and the other as having a fuller voice and being slightly more conversational in tone. So I originally was going to go with the wistful, but I decided to share both of them. I'll do one paragraph in the fuller voice, and then we'll switch to the wistful, and then we'll go back to the fuller. We'll see if you can tell when those changes happen. It was really fun to listen to her read my words. It made me feel like a real published writer. And before sharing those clips, I do just want to say a little something about AI and audiobooks. Brittany mentioned the existential dread of the inevitable AI takeover. I don't know that it has to be inevitable. I do think we as consumers have a lot of power, and if we don't buy books made by AI, that can send a very strong message that we prefer to be read to by actual humans using their authentic intelligence. That's my preferred AI, as they read these books with feeling and are actually impacted by what they're reading, which would not be the case with AI. And that lack of feeling and of being impacted and moved by literature is bound to have a negative effect on the listener, a deadening effect. So that's my soapbox moment against AI and in favor of actual humans doing work and having jobs and being creative. Brittany brings a lot of creativity to her work, and it comes through in the product, and we as the consumer and listener feel it. And also, if I were an author, I certainly wouldn't want my book to be read by a computer. I would want to hear another human being reading my work and maybe even collaborate with them a little bit and have a human experience with this thing that I made. Okay, thanks for listening. I'm Sarah B. This has been Time and Other Thieves, and here is Brittany Pressley reading some of my own writing. Thank you, Brittany.
Several times a day, they walk the perimeter of the yard together, which delights the dogs, who always want to be with them, and which has become their own source of delight, albeit sometimes, at least for Jessie, too much of yet more familiarity and ritual. In the warmer seasons, she walks barefoot. A few years ago, she watched a documentary about the physical and spiritual benefits of earthing, and she's practiced it daily ever since. As a result, her feet have the most intimate knowledge of this particular 1-acre plot of sloped land than perhaps any feet have ever had in this land's ancient history, here in the oldest mountains on earth. They roll in gentle waves of green that in their distant layers look blue. Their valleys envelop you. In summer, between mowings that stud the fields with monolithic hay bales, casting sharp shadows, the tall grass of the hillside beyond the creek appears, from Jessie's tiny back deck, to be breathing as the wind combs through it. This pulsing, psychedelic dance of wind and grass also resembles, to Jessie's eyes, horses galloping, an endless phantom herd of them, legs pounding but fluid, manes and tails like plumes trailing behind. Now it is late August. What a relief. Despite the garden bounty and aesthetic beauty that summer offers, it is Jessie's least favorite season. Summer means sweat, poison ivy rashes, family beach trips, and other occasions where one is expected to wear a bathing suit, and walk around half naked like that's a perfectly normal thing to do. According to the calendar, summer won't officially end for another month. But the air is noticeably different now, drier, and the garden is dwindling along with the length of days. No more wildflower bouquets in tiny vases all over the house. No more yellow squash and cucumber. They'll continue to be inundated with tomatoes for the next couple of weeks, and then suddenly there won't be any, and they'll have to buy them at the store again, which feels sadder to her now than the day after Christmas felt when she was a kid. The first stretch of perimeter they walk is now riddled with acorns from the oak branches overhead. They stab at the soles of Jessie's feet. With the nudge of a breeze, they drop onto the deck behind her with pleasant popping sounds. Pelting season, Ridge calls it. Almost the time of year when the American burnweed propagates itself in feathery white parachutes, the cottony wisps lifted high and light-filled, alive as much as any bird or bug it shares the air with in that brief avian transition. Soon the grass, in all its iterations, will thin and stiffen. But now, it still flattens in cool, rubbery dampness underfoot, with subtle differences in seemingly every step. Thick clover feels especially nice to walk upon, how the foot sinks in a little, as if in a cloud.